Okay, welcome everybody. I want to make sure you can all see my screen. All right, so let's get started, and welcome to another session of Ask the Expert. This is scope debugging. I'm going to be showing you several logging tips and tricks. And of course, my name is Steve Bell. This is all about me. I'm a ServiceNow MVP and also a member of the Expert Bureau and the Advocates, and then also a community blog author. And you can find my blogs out there. Just search for Steve Bell. Okay, so we have both client side and server side I'm going to be covering. Let me get rid of a couple things here. It's a little easier to see. All right, so some interesting things concerning client side have been added in to the Istanbul version of ServiceNow, and they make excellent tools for debugging both client and server side applications. So I'm going to demo a few of those here in a little bit, but I thought I'd review them first. So on the client side debugging tools, the thing that we have available to us just for the client portion are the JavaScript log, which if you've done any development in ServiceNow, client scripts, UI policies, UI scripts, anything on the browser side, then you will have used probably the JavaScript log. We have JS log back. So it was gone for a version, and now we have it back. And then also the good old-fashioned alert statement from JavaScript. And then we also had our general tools that we get with our browsers. I'll be demoing a little bit on Google Chrome, but you also have these available on IE and Firefox and any other browser. Okay, so a little bit on turning on the JavaScript logger. A couple of things first is when obviously you are working in scoped applications, it's a really great idea to turn on the application picker in the header. And then also it's on by default, but you probably want to make sure, and that's the update set picker in the header. And then the very last one there is the JavaScript log and field watcher. You can get at this through the gear in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. So when you're on your instance, just hit the gear and go down to Developer, on the Developer tab, and then make sure all three of these are turned on. What does this give you? This gives you the debugger. So here we can actually throw messages into the browser side screen, debugger screen, and this is a form of console where we can actually watch the information go by. The browser side throws a lot of information in here when this is turned on, and you can see there's quite a bit in the screen there. You can adjust the size from small to medium to large. Small really doesn't give you much in the way of real estate unless you've got it, the size of your picture reduced considerably. But to throw things into this and actually see what's going on, you can use JS log, and I'll be demoing that as well. Okay, and then of course your browser tools are available to you, and in Chrome you can hit F12 and pop the browser information up. Here again, whatever we write to the log will appear out to the side here in our screen. So that's pretty cool. You can turn that off either by hitting the X in the far upper right there, or by hitting F12 again. And Firefox does have this, by the way. It is a very similar tool. Okay, and a little bit more from the client side, you can actually debug into the business rules, and you can do this through a variety of ways. System diagnostics, script debugger. You can actually set breakpoints. It's a brand new thing. You can get it back first time since They broke it in Geneva. Actually, what happened was is they changed the interface from frames to divs, and when they did that, it wouldn't work inside the div environment. So it was a completely frame animal, and therefore we lost it for a while. Now it's back, and it's not the same tool. It's a little bit different, and I'll talk a little bit about that when I do a demo. But I think it's as good or better in many ways. So we'll move forward with that. The of course your general scoped logging types, info, warn, and error. We'll talk a little bit about debug and how to turn it on, gs.debug, since there seems to be a little bit of a mystery around this animal itself. Okay, and then another is the system diagnostics. And here you can type in debug, go to system diagnostics, and you'll take a look and you'll see we have a lot of different things we can turn on for debugging purposes. Where this appears is at the bottom of the form. So we'd have to scroll all the way down to see the debug screen that's available there. It looks something like this, for example, at the bottom of the incident form. You would see the entire debug screen available. And you can see it will display other types too that are available from that menu. So you can actually turn them on and off using the checkboxes available on this screen. So you can see where it says debugging output, and then there will be a list of the different types you have turned on, and you can turn those on or off by checking on them or unchecking them for this form so that it's easier to sort through the screen. I don't use this too much. I find it just a little bit too much noise, but I do know people who do use this and love it. So it's just another tool in the toolbox, something you want to take a look at, possibly utilize yourself. Okay, a little bit on the debugger. So this is our new debugger we get back in Istanbul. As you can see, there's a similarity to the tool that was in the Fuji release, and we do have the ability to set breakpoints. We can do this inside of here and also inside of the script itself. When we turn this on, we do so from the script, which is kind of an unusual firing point, but once you get used to it, it makes a lot of sense. Then you can set up multiple scripts with multiple breakpoints, and when it reaches that breakpoint, it will actually bring up that script. It will list them all out. You get the call stack, you get the transaction, and then you get a lot of information on your local variables. I like the closures feature, and then also any global variables that have been initialized. And this just gives you a lot of control. What I would like, and it's not here, is a step. I'd just like to hit step and continue, and I haven't been able to find that yet. It isn't part of the list in the upper controls in the upper right. You have pause, start, and then or go is basically what the triangle is. Then you got to jump over and jump into and jump out of. So I'll be showing you this in the demo. A couple other things that are interesting about this. This is a pop-up window that is a frame, iframes. So we get the iframes back, but only for this window. This works for both global and for scoped applications. Okay, so a little bit more, setting a debug. Oh yeah, one other thing about this client-side debugging tool. It does not do client scripts. So it's server-side stuff only. Even though you have it available when you're initiating things from the client side, this right here is only available to debugging the server-side scripts. So client-side, you're expected to set JS logs and so on. And the server-side scripts, when it jumps over into business rules or whatever, then you get this to fire and you get to actually start debugging. You can set breakpoints inside client scripts. They just never hit them, and it will show them up in here too. That's the interesting thing. It's like maybe we'll get it client script debugging in the future utilizing this tool. But right now, it shows it in the list of breakpoints. It actually shows the script too. but it never stops on it. It never stops on the breakpoints you set inside the client script. Server side right now is the only thing this thing works with. Okay, so a couple of features inside of the script. Inside the script itself, we're doing the construction. Your example is a business rule, and you'll notice we have a new button. This is our debugger launcher. So this will, once we set a breakpoint here and launch, it will show the script that we saw on the previous screen, and will show us where we actually set the debug. So, or the breakpoint. And when we go to run from, in this case, the incident table, we actually will be doing a little bit of work from there. You'll actually see where it will stop inside the debugger, and then you'll be able to walk through the code at that point. Okay, and when you fire off the debugger, then when you go and anything that launches into it will launch this little form. So for example, on the previous one, we set a debug here and we launched the debugger. So the debugger has to actually be up or it won't stop at the breakpoint. Then this will pop up and you hit the start debugging message, and then you'll go straight into it. You'll end up here. Sorry, I should have another form showing you. Okay, another thing, just kind of throw this out there on gs.debug. In order to get this thing to work, you have to set a property in your project. So this is for debugging inside of my scoped application. I found this out by going out to the community, by the way, because I wasn't sure how it was done inside of scoped applications. And you can set this, and once this is done, this is nothing more than a system property. You can go to sysproperties.list and you actually see it sitting there. It has to have this format, and you can turn it on by setting the value to debug. Once this is on, then you'll actually start seeing the debug messages showing up in your system log, and then we'll have a level of debug. And I put a string in front of mine just so that they stand out, but it gives you an idea of the difference here. So we have one that's an informational one, and the other one's a debug one. But this is how you turn on gs.debug. To turn it off, you put the value, either erase this thing, delete it, or you put the value db in there, and it turns off all of the gs.debug statements. Very useful if you want to hang on to certain areas that may be troublesome inside the code, and you have to move to production, and it may be later on you want to actually see this. That's the other thing I meant to mention about the debugger and all of that. It affects only you. So it isn't visible, it isn't triggered by other people when you do client-side debugging. It's only you that's affected. All right, so a little bit on server side. So server side is interesting. It has a lot of the same tools. You do not have the client debugger available to you, the client-side debugger, but you do have the script debugger. So that brand new script debugger we can fire that up. It is available to us. And we can make use of that to actually debug into further down the chain. Got to watch out with some of this debugging, as once you turn it on for yourself, you can end up having dozens of breakpoints, and you want to make sure that stuff's turned off after you're done with it, just for your own sanity. But anyway, once again, you have GSInfo warn and error. You have available to you a glide system animal called getMessage. Now, getMessage is curious because usually it's used for internationalization or localization. And in this particular case, I'm going to show you a technique to use this that that's useful in variable replacement inside of a message. So I'll show you something interesting about that, where you can have complex messages, and this actually allows you to do some great stuff with that. Then again, gs.debug. I'm going to show you a message technique that I came up with a few years ago to help keep me sane concerning ordering inside of the system log. Also an identification technique that is really important for info warn and error, so that you don't have mystery messages showing up and you don't know where they are and you don't have to go track them down. Or if you do, you've got the information sitting in front of you as to where they're actually located. Then I'm going to show you the millisecond technique. And I published an article on this recently having to do with actually ordering the messages you're placing out in the system log, because right now they do everything by seconds. They've been doing that since they first came out with ServiceNow. We've been screaming about wanting a millisecond counter in the seconds column for a very long time, and I finally just went ahead and started inserting this into my messages. It makes the messages a little verbose, but it's worth it in order to find out when something fired exactly. And I'll show you what I'm talking about there. All right, so the first script that we'll be looking at when we go server side, I'm going to be doing all my demo first on the client side. But on the demo side, server side, we'll be going over the first script here showing the messaging technique and how you can assemble a message for printout. This has pros and cons to it, and I'll go over a couple of those as I'm demoing. The next one, how come it's not doing it? It's acting weird. All right, I'm just going to use the mouse here. All right, so the identification technique allows you to set up where it's from and gives you the ability to identify each and every message that's printed out into the log and says, I came from here. This allows you to go turn off messages that you don't want to show up into production. Allows you to quickly find them. This thing just doesn't want to behave. All right, there we go. Last one, combined techniques. So here I'm going to show a bunch of best practices. I'm going to lump them all together. You can see there's the get message in there, and I'll be demoing, why this is important and what it could be used for. All right, a few things on additional resources. You got the script debugger information out in the product docs. So if you go out to ServiceNow documentation, you can find the info on the script debugger. I'll be publishing this deck out to the community after we're done with this session. So you can go jump to these links directly. Scope script logging, this is out in the wiki. It is really the older wiki, but it's got a really great couple of pieces in it that have to do with the property I just showed you on how to turn on the gs.debug. And then get message is out in the developer API for scoped applications, and works like a darn. And then get numeric value is also out in the developer API. This is what I use to go retrieve the millisecond value for a date time value. And then, of course, I've got a ton of articles sitting out there. I've got several on various logging techniques, including some of the ones I'll be showing you today. And just highly recommend going out and taking a look on the community. I'm not the only author. There's a bunch of people out there that publish all the time, and they have a lot of great information. So community is your best friend. All right, a little bit on the demo now. All right, make sure you can see my screen. Yes, you can. Let's blow this up just a little bit so that it doesn't cause blindness. All right. So, of course, we want to create a scoped application to get things rolling here. So, app and studio. Nice thing about Istanbul is that it's supposed to bring up my studio, and it's not doing that. Come on. My studio's not coming up. Let's refresh the old screen here and try again. Okay, that was really weird. All right, so let's create a new application. We're going to start from scratch. We're going to call this our debugging logger. You'll notice that in my developer instance, it tacks onto the front end here for scoping an X underscore. And then this is my company identification number that ServiceNow assigns me. For the personal developer instances, we're each assigned a number that represents this. We're not allowed to publish from a developer instance, so this really has no true meaning in that regard. But if you were a developer partner, you could actually publish out to the store. You also have the ability to publish internally, and I did some information on this at the last Ask the Expert. Anyway, so we do a create, and okie dokie. Back to list, and debugging logger. Okay, so I'm going to create an application file. The first one I'm going to create is going to be our client script that we're going to use for showing off some of the front end stuff. So we create a simple client script. Boom. I like the organizational ability of this application. It's really great. And we'll call this our logging client script. I guess I could call it logging scope. There, do that. And we'll go for the incident table. And pick that. And then type, I'm just going to do an onload, because all I'm going to do is demo a couple of things that are going on here. And let me see here. All right, so scroll down a little bit here because I'm blowing things way high. All right, so when you do an onload, let's open this all the way up. I'm going to toggle full screen so you can just see the script. I'm going to get rid of this automatic message here. You always get rid of the automatic message. It makes me nuts whenever I find one of those inside of code. I'm debugging someone else's code. Okay, and I'm going to type up a couple of things. First one's an alert. That basically will print off the number of the that I'm looking at, so it's kind of redundant, but use that. I'm just going to create a variable here and call it number, and I'm going to say G_form, and I'm going to retrieve it from the form, because this is our incident, right? All right, so and this is going to be number. And I better put something in here, and semicolon. All right, the other one I'm going to do is JS log, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to swipe this same information over here. All right, and let's see. I think of anything else I can stick in here that might be of interest. That's it. So, you know, I can call this incident number and be easier spot, I guess. The alert sticks it up in front of your face, or the JS log throws it into the actual console stream. So this is important to understand what's going on here. Again, alert is a JavaScriptism. You know, it is JavaScript. And it will throw the message straight up in front of you in the modal box, which arrests any other further movement. JS log, on the other hand, writes it to the console log and immediately continues processing. So this alert waits, JS log doesn't. I prefer JS log. It's smoother, it's slicker, and if I accidentally leave it in, it doesn't interfere with the customer or the client or the user, I guess is a better way to put it. All right, so I'm going to save this. I'm going to hit the little shave button here. Now, I'm going to go ahead and set a breakpoint for the moment, but I'm not, remember that it doesn't work here. So, but you can see where I guess it's because script is available anywhere. It doesn't make any differentiation, even though the debugger doesn't work. The script debugger doesn't work for client scripts right now. Notice I also have the Open Script Debugger button available inside the client scripts. It will list it. If I go ahead and hit this and bring it up, it will list it. And you can see I have debug messages here. I got debug messages all over the place. Hold on a second, let me turn this stuff off. Yeah, we don't need that one. That's the other nice thing. You can just look around here and get rid of them all. Okay, so you can see where it's listing the client script, but it doesn't know about client scripts. So it doesn't ever stop here. Just FYI, it doesn't work with client scripts. Okay, so we have this all set up. We got our alert, we got our JS log. All right, so we can't test from inside of the scoped application environment. So inside the studio, no testing. But we can test immediately back here. So let's go to incident. And let's scroll down here, go to open. And I'll open up one of my favorite incidents, which is number 2 down here. Okay, so there's our alert, because remember, it was an on-load. And boom. All right, so what happened? Well, we got our alert. Where's our message, our JS log? Well, remember, we have to turn that stuff on. So let's go over here to settings. Notice I've got things already turned on. I should have turned them all off for the demo, but give you an idea what's going on. But I don't have the JavaScript log and field watcher open. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up. Let's get out of here. It's going to take a little bit to get it to open. There we go. Now, this is the JavaScript logger. We also have field watcher, which I'm not going to get into here, but it's another debugger methodology. You can look it up, having to do with anything concerning the client-side debugger. Notice I have medium and large, and that each gets me a little bit bigger picture. For the demo, I'm going to keep it small because it eats so much real estate on this. I can make this, I'm going to move this aside and just allow you to see it all here. All right, so notice, this is only after I turned it on that it's starting to log information here. So I got a nice big stop button or clear log button over here, and I can smack that and clear the log out. Now, if I go up and reload this form, I'll get the alert again. Can't stand those alerts. Poof. And I will get my message. So incident number blah, 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 blah is here. Whoop. Right here. And I set it up so it'd stand out a little better. That's why I put the dash, dash, dash in front of it. It pops it out. But you get the idea. It's very handy. The logging is put into place here. I can scroll down through this. I can search it using my browser search. It will show up. So it does find it, which allows you to do a look in it because there is no built-in search for it, but your browser will find it just fine. The other thing I wanted to point out on this is going to my F12 for Chrome. Allows me to pop up the console, and you can actually see the messages appear in the console itself. So that's pretty cool. Get a lot of garbage in here, a lot of stuff you don't care about, but these are the things that fired, and some of this is in the log and to the down here for the JavaScript log, and some of it is not. And I use this a lot to debug actual display problems, or I go and get information out of it concerning the actual name of this sort of thing. You can do an inspect and find out what the field actually is called, and you can manipulate colors using this, which is pretty cool. So you can actually get in. There's some very great advantages to having this kind of tool around. You can see it's It's got its own name and everything else. It's kind of microscopic print for you to see that, but get the idea. The tool is available. All right, so that's pretty much it client side. You can get rid of this by clicking on the close here. One other thing I wanted to point out is, we got to go deactivate our client script here in a moment, but we're going to be talking about the browser next. And down here at the bottom, past all this stuff, we're going to actually see a bunch of information starting to display when I turn on the debugger. So let's go set up a business rule. First, we got to turn off our client script because all it will do is continue to pop that alert at us. Matter of fact, looks like I got a couple of them here. Now, here's an interesting thing. If I try to turn off a client script from a different application, watch what happens. It'll only do the one that I'm currently set up as. It won't do the other one. So it's kind of an interesting thing. See, I deactivated mine, but there was another one turned on from a different application scope, and it would not let me do it. The only way you can turn that off or have it edited is getting into the scope of that animal. So either global, or in this case, I had a different debugger I was working on, and I can go jump into that and turn it off in here. But it keeps the scope security pretty rigidly enforced. So you can play the game of trying to turn it off inside of the list view, but it'll only turn off the ones where you're currently scoped, which is my debugging logger here. So where I'm at. All right, so business rule. And we're going to create a simple business rule that basically does the same thing as our previous business rule did. Here, I'm going to turn this one off too. God, I got all this stuff on. Nothing like a demo not to survive contact with the people I'm demoing to. Okay, turn that one on. Oof. All right, so we're going to create a brand new one here. We'll call it debugging scope. We're going to run it with the incident table. We're going to turn on advanced because we're going to be playing the game of actually writing a script. We're going to do it on update only because I really don't want to mess around with anything else for the purposes of the demo. And we're going here. Again, wipe out the default comment in there. All right, and we're going to do server side now. Even though we're going to be initializing this from the client side by kicking it off, we're going to be doing debugging inside the server side. And here we'll set our breakpoints, we'll fire off everything, and I'll be able to show you a couple of things. So gs.info. Okay, a couple of techniques I use a lot is on info and warn and error. I use variable replacement all over. I mean, you won't see me use it any other way. So variable replacement, use squiggly. And close. I also use brackets, open close brackets for array, even though I only have one element here. And the reasoning behind this is that this is the scoped world, and one variable will work fine. Multiple variables, scoping anticipates it all being an array. So if I had another value in here, I'd have comma value 2. If I didn't have this, it would ignore everything after the first one, because scoped environment anticipates you having the square brackets. So I just get into the habit of putting them in wherever I have an info warn or error. All right, so that'll replace the squiggly zero squiggly here with current.number. Let's go ahead and save. So now we got our new debugging scoped. It's a V4 business rule. It works on updates, and it runs a GSInfo. All right, so I go over here to the gutter, and you see where I highlight. If I click on that, it'll turn on the breakpoint. Now, if I go over here and I click on the Open Script Debugger, it'll bring up my debugger, and it will show. All Apparently I've got client script still turned on, so I'm going to turn it off. It takes a little while, by the way, be patient. It has to go out and check a couple things apparently. All right, so here's my debugger. I'm going to minimize this and bring it aside here. I'm going to duplicate this thing. I love Chrome. Okay, we're going to go out to incident. Now notice, even though I built this here, notice I went to business rules and built my business rule. If you go back over here to this environment, notice I have a business rule here called debugging scope that's automatically added into the studio. I could have just as easily created it here. So you can either work inside the studio or work out, and it will automatically add it to the studio and allows you to continue to manage it from inside the studio. I'm going to do that, and notice it also brings across my debugging, my breakpoint. All right, I'm going to bring up my log. So this is my system logs. I went ahead and already set it up for the messages. Remember, we were looking at my messages earlier from the business rule. All right, so I'm gonna, I wish I could clear this out. No easy way to do it. This is from earlier when I was testing this stuff for this class. All right, so let's go ahead and run this thing. So let's go to incident, open. Now, in order for this to run, we have to change because it's an on before business rule, has no criteria to it. It just has to be, you know, something modified on as an update. So I'm going to go right here. Below the subcategory. There it is. And I'm going to save. All right, so there's our pop for the debugger. And when I hit start debugging, it will then now show inside of my debugger here. It stopped on my breakpoint. And here we go. So here's my call stack over here in the upper left-hand corner. So the executes that occurred. And I went in through a UI action to the business rule. Remember, I updated, I saved. It goes to my business rule and then executes the rule itself. So I have a, that function is, if you remember, execute rule right here. So it actually says it. It's inside of an anonymous function, which is what we do to protect business rules from interfering with each other. And inside here, I got my GSInfo where it stopped. Now, it hasn't executed this yet. It won't execute until I hit this button up here, or F9 to resume. If I'm doing a lot of stuff, I can pause. I can jump into, or over, or out of. So here's the jump over. I could actually not execute this line by clicking on this button. I do want to execute this line because I want to show you what happens. But you know, I could step into this function if it were mine. I can't, since it's a ServiceNow function that is inside Java. I wouldn't be able to jump into it. If I hit this, it would just go past it. It'd act like a step through. Stepping out of, if I'm inside of a function, I can immediately step out of the function without executing anything further. Notice the transaction detail down here in the lower left, so I can actually see some of the information on it. And if I had serious variables, like current, I can actually go see what current is set to, which it should be my, you know, the form I was working with recently, the record I was working with, right? So here's all the current information off of that form. So I can actually see what the information is during runtime now, and without having to put a whole bunch of infos in. I get the previous object as well. And I get all my closures, which is really great. So I got my current closures. And again, this has to do with the scope glide record that's passed in, and it just gives me all the information on it. And if there were any globals, which there aren't here, it would show those up immediately as well. But any variables I set inside this thing that are mine, it will automatically show them. All right, so let's go ahead and hit play. Let it rip. Poof. Okay, so it executed. And I'll drag that aside here. And now if we go out to our debugging log right here, and we should have a message, and we do. And this was an information message we just placed out. It's incident number 2. You can see it's in our scope over here, which is the -L. Let me go ahead and bring that up, show matching. There we go. So this is everything from my current scope. So there you go, a little bit on debugging that stuff. All right, so let's go turn on the on-screen debugger. And debug up here. I can scroll down to System Diagnostics Session Debug, and I can turn on Debug Business Rules. And there's a verbose version and a regular version. The regular version is the one I use a lot. To turn this off, you do disable all. This is also briefly turned on when you're doing script debugger. As long as you got the script debugger on, there's session debugging going on. All right, so going back up here to incidents, and we'll reopen incident number 2. And scroll down a little ways, if it'll let me. There we go. That's the finished drawing screen. Okay, now down here at the bottom, notice I'm past everything else, past the related list. Here's my debug output. Pretty cool, huh? So this actually walks step by step over everything that was executed in the way of business rules. And it goes on and on and on and on. This tells you what business rules ran, which ones were skipped, what ones caused problems. So you can actually jump to the various business rules. There's a lot of really interesting stuff in here, just to walk through it and take a look. Pretty cool, huh? I don't use this either because I find it it's kind of redundant what it gives me. I'll use debug and I'll use a bunch of other things, but that particular one is not one that I use that much. And I can disable it by hitting disable all. There we go. All right, so on to the next one. So let's create a script include. Well, actually, let me do one other thing. So gs.debug. I'm going to set up a variable up here so you can see what happens when we do local variables. And I'm going to show you something neat. Over here is the toggle script tree, if you didn't know about this. Click on that, and wherever my mouse was, I will go do a lookup on a field. I want the current.number there, right? So I can just scroll down here. If I don't know the name of the variable, I can find it. And there it is. And I can click on that. And if I go back up here, you will see it has placed current.number in there for me. So this is a really great way to go if you don't know a chain down to something, like you could say current.assigned to .manager.name, you know, and actually have that all there and be able to pick it from the tree picker. All right, so I'll do this. Change this to just number. And now I'm going to do the same thing. You know, I probably, yeah. So I'm going to do this now as a way of showing you. Actually, I'm going to do a 1 here inside of a bracket, so it looks nice. And then I'll put a comma and the word debug here. And now it'll replace that squiggly 1 squiggly with the word debug, and it'll look nice. All right, so if I run this right now, let's go and say, it'll actually do nothing. that debug will be totally ignored. So how do I get that to work for my scoped application? Well, let's create a system property for it. So system property, create. And this has to be logging verbosity. A little hard to remember. Notice it's just the suffix of this. That will be added immediately after the name here. The values are db, so I always put the default, and it's string. And in order to get debug, gs.debug to turn on, you have to type the word debug here. Once I submit this, that's all there is to it. It will now turn on my gs.debug statements. And this is a great way of using these instead of gs.info. And they will take the variable replacement just like everything else. And gs.info, unfortunately, will fire and put messages into the log, no matter what. Whereas debug will only put them in there if this is actually turned on. So this way you can actually control in production when your messages are being written to the stream. So okay, we just turned on debug. Yeah. So back to my business rule, and this is another feature of the studio I like a lot. And it's not going to let me scroll down, I tell you. I'm more trouble with my mouse today. All right, I'm saved already, so I don't worry about that. Now this is turned on. If I turn off my info, save. Now I don't leave commented out info statements in my code. I clean everything up before I push it out. Another best practice, by the way. Reduces clutter and confusion, and it also takes away the remote possibility of someone actually uncomments that. All right, so let's go back to our incident. And open up one. How am I doing on time? I got 12 minutes left. I want some time for questions. Okay, I'm going to change my subcategory to something else. Let's save. I have to wait for things to render here. And now I should get a debug in my log, right? Ta-da! So this is the way you can control logging for your scoped application and only your application, which makes it nice and compartmentalized. So you have now control over the debugging inside of just your scoped application. And if you go out to system properties, the nice part about this is after deployment, you can go turn this on yourself or off, because it's a system property, it is available to you to make modifications to. And there are a variety of things to this, but what's nice about this is you can turn it on and off out in production. All right, now let's get down into the gritty nitty. Go back to our scoped application. I am going to create a way of writing this stuff out to the log, but I'm going to use a script include to do some work for me. So let's create a script include. And type in script. Need to get things to work. And we'll do a script include, create. Okay. I'll call it my logging scoped and it is going to be for this application scope only. That way it's nobody else can call this. I mean, if I wanted everyone to call it, I'd do all application scopes. My stuff here, make this none. All right, so now I've got the ability to create a really cool logger, right? All right, so let's do that. I'll call it logging test, and it'll be a function inside of this thing. I'm going to feed it a problem ID off of the form and a problem name. So this will be my actual function. Usage will be new logging scoped. I always do this in my descriptions. And logging test, and the ID and the name. So I copy that. I take this over to my business rule. Let's take away the debug. We don't need it. Actually, I could go turn it off, right? Just do a DB. Why don't I do that? System property. Let's do that. Okay, now my debug gets turned off. All right, and this right here is going to contain the number. This will be the problem number, right? So current dot problem ID. See, cool, isn't it? Fills it in. Another thing that's neat about the new editor. And then I also want the current problem ID dot get display value, because it's the name, right? All right, so those are the two values I want to put in there. Let's bring this down to the next line so it's a little easier to see. And so I'm going to feeding that into my new script include, and it will go off and do some work for me. So I'm going to leave the debug in here to show it turns off. I'm going to take my breakpoint out of here. Let's save. My last two demos, I'm just going to do a real quick, show you what the scripts look like, and then I'll be posting all this out for you to look at. All right, so we'll back to our script include when it finishes saving here. So on the first round, instead of me typing it all in, I'm going to use the script I went ahead and developed. Get time here. And we have a logging test now that uses technique number one I was telling you about, which is my construction of a message. So I just put a new line inside of this thing and start tacking stuff onto the end of it. I do want a new line after the end of this, otherwise it'll run in with everything else. So everything I add to it needs to have a new line after it. And my message here is number of incidents and stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this problem ID and go out and search the incident table for all other incidents that have that same problem ID. That's all this does. So a little bit of work. And then I'm going to print them all to the log at the end down here. What this does is it orders it up in the way that I found it. If I put a gs.info on every one of these, which I'll show here in a moment, then they're all out of order, or they're quite possibly all out of order, because it's very fast when it writes things down. And since the finest granularity you'll get inside the system log is in seconds, it's not good enough to be able to list them in the order in which they were actually written to the log. So this is a way of getting your order back. Let's go ahead and save. The other thing I wanted to show there was that we don't know, I didn't bother to put in where I came from. But it knows from a higher level what application ran it. So let's go ahead and go in here. I'm going to go ahead and reload. Well, no, I don't need to do that. We're just going to change. So I'm going to do this, save, and boom. As soon as it comes back, it's boom. You'll get these debugger logger granting stuff across scope whenever you're doing development. So I'm going to kill that. And it's recording that into my application. All right, let's go out here to do the system log and filter further on our debug application. And now you can see that it nicely puts everything into a single message here in the order in which I asked it to. So this is really, really useful. And this is what I used for several years to keep it all straight inside the debugger. Notice that over here under the created, it is the finest granularity you get is seconds, and you can have several messages in a single second. If you keep ordering it up, it will actually flip the ordering in the screen because it doesn't know which one to put first. It's just not a good enough granularity. So let's give it a good enough granularity. So on the next level of this, let's just play around a little bit with the a location. So I'm going to put location. I'm also going to put milliseconds in this. Now, I'm not going to use message for it. I'm just going to use the GSInfo with the replacement values. So what will happen here is it'll put the millisecond value in slot number 1. It'll put the incident number in slot 0, and it will put the location, which is up here in this variable, into slot 2. Now, what's this good for? Well, if you remember on our log, we really don't know anything about this thing. Notice none of these actually point to that business rule as having been fired, or a script include as having been fired either. So we don't know exactly where these messages came from. We'd have to go search the code base just trying to locate them. By the way, you can do that. Right up here, this code search in the upper right-hand corner is awesome. It will let you search the entire code base. So you can say all code applications, go find my incident. Today, incident number. Give it up though. And when you hit search, it will actually go out and find all pieces of code everywhere that have that particular thing. You can search. Here's the list that it goes and searches. It's not all inclusive, but it is pretty darn good. And you know, you get the idea. It will go out and look at all of these, no matter what application they're in, and come back with the information as to the example you're looking for. Cancel. All right. A couple things here real quick. So I'm going to be doing variable replacement with milliseconds as the very first value. And this allowed me to actually order up my messages according to the millisecond it was fired. I did save already, so I can go and change this again. And save. Lisa, I'm probably going to go over a couple of minutes.
Okay, that's great. We don't have any questions posted on the community so far yet, but maybe they'll be watching at the end.
Okay, I didn't hit save. All right, great. So let me hit save. And now let's try it again. So I'll change the value, hit save, and see what happens. These that were fired are in the same second, but which one actually went first? Well, let's bring up everything with the bracket 149 in it. Now I can actually order by message descending or ascending, and notice it will give me the millisecond value here at the beginning, and I can actually sort against that. So this one here came first, and this one here came second. This is super, super useful. Notice also that I now have an identifier that tells me where it came from. So it's a script include logging tester scope. Easy. Go find that. I'm done. I can go remove these if I need to do that. So I can go easily clean up things. All right. Now my final one is to combine all this stuff together. So let's do message, and we'll do the location, and we'll throw milliseconds in, even though we probably won't use it, but I'll have it in there nonetheless. So let's replace this code here. Oh, so I have my location still. Now I'm going to be using a thing called getMessage. And I was telling you a little bit about getMessage. Let's put this down the next line. The formatter gets confused. All right, so I'll be putting, at the very beginning, I'll be doing a variable replacement using this thing. So this acts like info without actually printing anything off. It just formats my string and does the variable replacement for me. So a very nice utility for that matter. It doubles, in my mind, this is more useful this way, but for internationalization, that is what it was actually intended for. So actual replacement of strings with their language counterparts. And then I could tack problem name into the message like we did on the very first example. And notice I've got it down here as well. And then see down here, then this simplifies my actual info message down at the bottom because my variable replacement was done here at the top. And any additional messages, of course, you want to make sure you get the right millisecond in there, so you'd be doing this kind of variable replacement. By the way, I furthered this technique. I've got a library I built that now will take info, warrant, error, whatever. I created my own back-end handler, and I can feed it, and it will automatically drop this information into a message without me having to do all the work. So that all I'm sending it is essentially the message and the location. It does all the rest of the stuff for me. But this is a very useful thing to get messages. All right, so let's save. Let's go see what this does. Okay, I'm going to change my value one last time. Let's save. All right, so let's go take a look at logs. And ta-da. All right, so I went ahead and just asked for the ones with the message starts with 149 again, because I wanted to show you that, again, it's ordering it in the moment it happened. Now, granted, off to the created here, these are all by seconds, so it's pretty obvious if I sort by created. But if I sort by created, watch what happens with those last two. Okay, didn't do it that time. Let me refresh. No, still didn't do it. Sometimes it'll flip these, so they're out of order, because they're both exactly the same value under created. So that's why I don't like the created field right now for actually doing work inside of the system log. And it's because it plays the game getting them all out of order. If you got a lot of messages, boy, you'll see it right off the bat. But you can see, if I've got all my messages nice and ordered up here, I've got the exact millisecond when this occurred. If I've got a lot of messages going on, this is a way of combining both techniques and throwing them together. And that's it. So any questions? Sorry I ran late there.
Okay, let me check again. I don't see any on the YouTube at this time, and I'm going to get back to the community and see what we see there.
I'll be posting this deck out later. Okay. I'll give it to you and you can post it.
Great. Currently no questions. You've been awfully thorough, but hopefully we have some ones that come on the community after they watch the on-demand version.
All right.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for attending.